Yo, Joburg, everybody. Welcome to the GI Joburg panel on Iconicon 2021. This is the first panel I've ever given. Forgive me if I'm a little bit loopy. I'm going to shake loose the energy. Fortunately, I'm not going it alone. We have the Iconicon royalty in attendance today, and I'm going to introduce the guests in turn. First up, from Reklaimers Vintage Toys. This is an Instagram account that is also an online vintage toy seller specializing in GI Joe toys, very nicely curated, but also with tons of good stuff. This is Matt Swafford. Matt, come on in, buddy. Can you hear me, buddy? You there? Well, I suppose it's a good idea to have a little hiccup in the front end of a live stream because it takes a little while for everyone to join us. But in the meantime, I see some other gents waiting in the wings. This guy needs no introduction. It's Mr. RetroBlasting himself, Michael French. Welcome to the stream, buddy.
And this is Reklaimers. So, that other one can be pulled down. That is our sound. There you go. Huzzah!
Gotcha. There we go.
Yep. Good deal. So, Matt, please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Matt with Reklaimers Vintage Toys.
Can you hear him all right?
We can hear both of you clear as a bell.
Excellent. And thank you for having us on GI Joburg. This is really exciting for me because I have been listening to your show for years. Like it makes my commute, when I had a commute, awesome, and I still keep up with your podcast. And then when I found out you were doing vehicle and toys, dramatic recreations and skits and all that kind of stuff, I was like, what? So I also follow your YouTube channel as well. And I know that we've kind of known each other for several years now, but just being on your show finally is really exciting for me. So I'm kind of nervous. Honestly.
Works both ways. I think we all are. Gee whiz, how do we break the ice? Do you guys have a stern drink? I mean, it's 10 p.m. for the East Coast. It'd be a bit strange if I was knocking one back at noon, or is it? I mean, it's happy hour somewhere in the world, right?
That's right. That's true. That's absolutely true.
Totally allowed.
Okay, so we got Reklaimers, we got RetroBlasting, but rounding out the quartet, we have Tony from Analog Toys. Hello, Tony.
Hello. I'm wearing my dusty T-shirt today. I thought... This is the shirt for this
represent
panel.
And I see some classic comics in attendance as well. I think I might be the odd man out by representing. I mean, nonetheless, it's 80s cred, right?
Absolutely.
But, don't feel bad. I've got a Coke T-shirt on, so.
And I'm just doing my normal Kylie thing. So,
of course. Well, Mike, I've yet to get the explanation about why Kylie. But perhaps we'll save that for another panel.
Yeah, I can save it for another panel, but I can definitely tell you offline as well. But I don't want to bore our viewers with that and my weird hobbies. So yeah,
that's a whole panel in itself. That
yeah,
we are four toy guys. Obviously, we have other interests too, like Kylie. But today we're talking comics, which is something that I think GI Joburg is kind of steered clear of, but no longer. I think we finally have the right company to do it in. This is a debate, I guess, with the outcome possibly determined by popular vote. But I think this is something that most comics fans are probably already decided on, right? We're trying to sway the fence sitters, perhaps.
Well, I think it's one of those things, just like with anything, when people they decide very quickly how they're going to lean on something, and it's the other person's job to kind of sway them back the other way. So I think it's a friendly debate. I feel like
I'm gonna make perhaps a prediction that you gents are representing the underdog in this debate.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But without further ado, anyone in the dark who hasn't scrolled as deep as the the description to this live stream, what is the topic? Matt, would you mind just unpacking that for us?
Sure. I do want to quickly say that your original idea was also a great one, of doing the regular Joe series Marvel run versus the G.I. Joe Special Missions, which is just a fantastic series. So,
well, we'll save that for the content.
Just want to give you a shout out for that, though. But for this one, it's basically the first 50 issues of the G.I. Joe Marvel comic run. versus the issue number 51 through 101. So the first 50 issues and the second 50 issues. Which run is better? And
Mike
us being the
showing his
underdog,
allegiance.
us being the underdog, everybody kind of, I feel like, they think of number 21, and I'm not going to make all your points for you, but oh,
you're welcome to.
It's there's really good stuff on both sides. So I think it's going to be a really fun debate because it's all good. There's really no loser. So
perhaps before we get into the meat and potatoes of these arguments for 1 to 50 versus 50 and beyond, do you think there are other comic series under the G.I. Joe umbrella worth mentioning? We've got a great little super chat from Gen X Toys, and he says, any love for the G.I. Joe Transformer crossover comics? He didn't specify which.
I think if Tim Witten were still here right now in the studio, he went home to get some sleep. It's been a long day for him too. I think he would be the defender of G.I. Joe Transformer crossover because he loves the Transformers comics. He loves G.I. Joe.
We're talking about the one from the 80s with Herb Trimpe? Wow.
I think so.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to beat the drum for Tom Scioli's Transformers versus G.I. Joe.
Oh, okay.
That was some retro balls to the wall fun, which... yeah, it's a guilty pleasure. It's a very Marmite series. You either love it or you hate it. I love it. It's possibly in contention for my hot take favorite G.I. Joe series ever.
Wow.
It's just a melting pot of some great ideas. And if you can look past the kind of slightly puerile art style, which I do, I find it gorgeous. It's got some good stuff. I'd definitely give it a reread if you were a doubter.
I have never heard somebody heap that. I've never heard anything negative said about it, but I've never heard anybody heap that kind of praise on it. So I'm going to give that a hearty Owen Wilson. Wow.
All right, I'm new to this, guys. How do I make a Gen X Toys geek go away?
Oh, you just click the comment again, or you click on another comment,
click another one, and
then click that off. Yeah.
All right.
So just click any comment and then click it again to go away, and then it'll all be gone. There you go.
Yes. All right. Oh, Paul, have you joined us?
Steven! There's a super chat here from Gen X Toys Geek Jody for £25. We just want to say thank you.
Those are euros, by the way, but I'm going to pound that. Bam.
And there's another one from Ryan Sweeney.
Ryan insists that I buy some Joe toys for my 4-month-old son. I think that's some great advice, Ryan. Get him started on the right foot.
Well, if you're looking for some
shadow,
if you're looking for some, if you're looking for some Joes, I know a guy.
Oh, feel free to punch your store, buddy. As I said before, if you're not aware of Reklaimers Vintage Toys, check them out on Instagram. Like I said, very very well curated, beautiful. Good specimens and at reasonable prices. Anyway, James, how do we even crack this one open? I guess the opening gambit has to be from the proposal team. What is your head of argument? What would you like to sway the fence sitters on?
For people that might not be familiar with the G.I. Joe story, I think this is my suggestion. Take it or leave it. I got no ego in this. Maybe it would be good to start with the first block and debate that first block, because that will give some people who haven't read them an insight into chronologically what happens in the first half that we debate, and then we debate, the second half after that. I mean, as a foil, rather than starting from, I think it's better if you guys cover the 1 through 50 and what your points are on why it's the better run, and then we'll, I guess, counter. Because if we go back and forth, it's going to get confusing.
Fair enough. Yeah. So, all right. Yeah. Well, Tony, do you want to take the first crack at this, my man?
Well, so obviously, I grew up in the UK with Action Force Weekly, which had a number of Marvel UK stories in it, mixed in with original G.I. Joe stories, but they were not exactly chronological. There was lots of standalone stories. So actually, in preparation for this stream, I've been going back rereading some of the because when I moved to Australia in the late 80s, I think one of the first, because in Australia we had GI Joe: A Real American Hero, the comic, and one of the first ones I picked up, I think, was like the 25th anniversary of the inception of GI Joe. So it's where Joseph Colton comes around. So I've had to reread a lot of this, but for me, it's the introduction of so many classic characters, the way they were introduced. There is a number of standalone issues. Now, I know everyone's going to jump to, obviously, issue 21, but I'm actually going to go out on a limb and I say that I think issue 34 is the single greatest like single issue comic story in the entire GI Joe run, Shakedown. So that's what I'm championing.
And that's Tony. That's the one. That's refreshing my memory. That's the dogfight, right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Yep. So Wild Weasel and the Rattler against. Is it Wild Weasel and the Baroness? I think.
Yes. Versus Ace and Lady J in the Sky Striker. Yep.
Yeah. Yes.
For my part, and I think what you were hoping we'd do, Matt, is like a timeline, just to kind of situate people as to what happens. I think the key events that we're aiming for here is issue 50, and the lead up to issue 50 is establishing the team, establishing the conflict, bringing in the kind of the support players like the General Flags, the Dr. Venoms, the October Guards, which were not action figure characters, and these were Larry Hammer's kind of world building, the setting, the pit and Springfield, and it culminates in Cobra discovering the location of the pit, and GI Joe somehow smoke screening them to kind of attack them and then move on, and in the process, the leader of GI Joe, ostensibly General Flag, is killed. Then we have the ultimate retaliation on Cobra. G.I. Joe finally learned the location of Springfield, but it's a hollow victory because Cobra is able to fully evacuate their kind of support staff, their civilian populace, to the newly created headquarters, Cobra Island, which has become a nation almost, as kind of a terrorist nation. It's its own sovereign state. And that is pretty neatly where issue 50 ends. Like, that is the status quo. The conflicts amongst the villains has been established. No one trusts anybody. Dr. Venom is dead. The Baroness has been horribly burned, but then has recovered. Major Blood is scheming to kill Cobra Commander using his son. Like, these layers of intrigue have all been kind of sewn into the tapestry of G.I. Joe. And then 51 onwards is the slow build towards the Civil War. Because in issue 50, we've established Serpentor as like the new threat. And the Civil War is kind of the tentpole event of the later run. Of course, there are other fantastic diversions into Barovia. We'll probably get into that. I imagine that's a very strong argument in favor of the proposition, gents.
Yes.
But the culmination of issue 100 is the return of the true and rightful Cobra Commander, because I mean, anyone familiar with the comics know that in the Civil War era and thereafter, we are dealing with an imposter, Fred 7 in the battle armor Cobra Commander look.
Right.
So is that a sufficient précis, gents?
Yeah, that's a good overview of each block, I think. So basically, I guess we will go back and forth because we have, we got plenty of time. So, so why don't you guys start with like that first, maybe a rundown on the first 10 or so issues.
Oh, we'll never get through it. We'll never get through 90 minutes.
Well, look, if you want, as a point of departure, I think the easiest way for us to kind of state our case is, and to state it to everyone who's scratching their heads thinking like, why am I making this decision to begin with? Let's have a hypothetical. Let's say you have a 2-week vacation planned with little to no distractions, a great hammock maybe. I don't know, picture your favorite kind of relaxing environment to read comic books. And you are specifically mandating yourself, I'm going to read some excellent, excellent comic books. And you can't go wrong with G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero. If you're a fan of toys, if you're a fan of compelling comic books, you can't go wrong. But 2 weeks is a finite enough period of time. So, do you read the beginning of the team leading up to the assault on Springfield? That's 50 issues. Is it's conceivable you'll be able to get through that in 2 weeks. Or do you aim for the latter half of the 80s, dealing with the Civil War, Cobra Commander imposter, the kind of deepening of the Arashikage mystery, and ultimately the return of the true CC? So yes, that is why you're making this decision. Time is finite. Which would you prefer to read? Oh, Storm Shadow's back.
Quickly, there's some more super chats. It's crazy up in here. One's from Jim Largo.
Wow.
Thank you, Jim Largo. He says maybe Tony can tell us how the Action Force comics compare and contrast to these Joe comics. Thanks, gents. And also, Sergeant Slaughter's Slaughterhouse. Nice video, by the way. Here is a bribe to say something nice about Sergeant Slaughter's very small appearance in the comic. That wasn't me.
That was the
Also, your Muslim uncle says, I'm sure Michael remembers the commercials for the comics. Did they have them abroad as well, even if they were country-specific versions of Joe? And now you can answer quickly before you get into your debate.
I'm going to take the middle point first. Sarge, 10 Huts, glad to have you with us. This is a cheap shot to get your vote. But the Sergeant Slaughter's debut appearance is within the first 50 issues. It's right at the tail end, but it's an issue called Slaughter. He makes his appearance and immediately lays the pain on Zartan in his debut. So if that swings your vote, Sarge, I'll take it, thanks. And Tony, do you want to talk about the Action Force, or I assume they mean the Battle Action Force paper rags?
No, I believe he's referring to Action Force Weekly. That's the comic that I talk about all the time. Came out in 1987. I think it was Jim who asked that sent that super chat. Jim, that is a whole discussion on its own. So I will answer that, but I'm going to do that in a completely separate live stream, maybe 3 weeks after Iconicon, once I've had some sleep.
And Tony, I mean, if you have room on that live stream or a future live stream, I'd love to one day talk about the battle books.
Yes, absolutely.
Because that's such a different approach.
Oh yes,
yeah. Got into it a little bit with Paddy from Full Force.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's its own kettle of fish, and I mean, just stylistically so different. You know, they don't use any kind of sound effect. Like, there's no onomatopoeia on the comic book page. Something that we so associate with comics, like rat-a-tat-tat-tat, blam, blam, blam. The thing that struck me immediately was like, wow, there are no sound effects. We're just kind of making them up in our mind.
Interesting.
Maybe maybe that's the way it should be done. Maybe, page real estate is really valuable, so why take it up with lettering that ultimately we kind of do with our own brains?
I kind of agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Especially now in the kind of the more digital art styles where the sound effects are like an overlay. So it's not embedded in the art style anymore. It's like, it kind of is a visual distraction to me, but I guess I'm just an old, cantankerous old man.
I mean, you look ancient, so.
Well, I ran a comb through my hair because Tony's got some obsession in the opening ceremonies with grading men on their hairstyles. But I don't want to get stuck on that one. Mike, do you want to speak to the other super chat about the commercials?
I remember those commercials. I'm sure Matt does too. They would have kind of like a little synopsis, and then it would be find out in Marvel Comics, and they'd had like the laser lights behind the comic issue, keep up with G.I. Joe's adventures in Marvel Comics. And I remember seeing those commercials for not many years, but the first half of G.I. Joe especially.
I think it was like the first 20 or so issues. They had their own animation produced for it. And it was really, I love watching them. They were so fast but that animation was gorgeous, and I wish that carried over into the cartoon series. But again, that's a whole nother panel.
I know. Well, I think the animation budget for those shorts for the commercials was obviously swollen, and it had a huge impact on the comic sales.
Yeah,
and of course, was all to thank for the deregulation of it, or at least comic books weren't regulated the same way toys were, so they could get away with slamming these toys into essentially a comic book commercial.
The first time I ever knew about GI Joe in 1982 was those comic book commercials. And that's what whetted my appetite for, oh my God, we got to go out and get these, you know? Like,
and of course, Larry had to work those commercials square peg round hole into his stories somehow. It was like, oh, there's a commercial that has the swamp skier and the water moccasin. So I guess I've got to have like a story where Zartan just plows over a water moccasin at one point. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anyways, gents, we've blown a little bit off course, I guess. For me, if we're going to address things in turn ever so slightly, I think the first 10 issues of G.I. Joe are unassailable.
Okay.
They are bulletproof. This is actually a point that this goes beyond the point I need to make. This is kind of me proving things that I don't need to sway the argument. But like, if there was a comic series that I can read cover to cover and cover to cover again, it's those first 10 issues, because I guess it holds a lot of cards close to the chest. There are inklings, there are threads that are going to be pulled at much later. And oftentimes, as we'll find in most pop culture, the setup always surpasses the payoff. I mean, it's a sad truth of any storytelling. You have to conclude things one way, and you're never going to make everybody happy. But those 10 issues, just the way they deal with personifying each Joe, I think we have a good sense of what each of the original 13 is like. I think Larry made a point of drawing from real life people that he had met to inform those characters. I think the only one I can't really define would be poor old Grand Slam. He's just a hell guy.
He did have a pretty good moment. I believe it's in issue number 12.
Is that the one where he's smashing through the
he jumps on a bus and he's chasing Major Blood, and he beats the brakes off Major Blood. He does have that moment, but other than that, I don't think we ever see Grand Slam other than just a real quick kind of smattering.
He doesn't even get like a send-off like Grunt going to college on the GI Bill or whatever it was. He just disappears. You know, I really agree with what you're saying, Stephen, about those first issues. You know, I think issue number 1 and 2 are some of the best comic books that have ever been written. I mean, they really are just rock solid, like you said, issues. I read issue number 1 in the GI Joe yearbook because as a kid, I couldn't get my hands on the actual number 1 at the height of this comic's popularity then. So I had the GI Joe yearbook number 1, and I read issue number 1 25, 30, 40, 50 times. I can't remember. It was really good. And I couldn't wait when I finally owned issue number 2. The snow, I want to call it adventure.
Panic at the North Pole.
Yes, the mission, and then ending it just visually, knowing that, you know, Snake Eyes has taken on, you know, the mantle of the hunter, and you know, implying that, oh, they really did get their quarry, like they got all those guys. I mean, it's very good visual storytelling. Where I start to, when I had to think about this for this live stream, you know, what side am I going to be on, 1 to 50 or 51 to 100? That was where I started to struggle, because I thought, well, I love the original 13 guys. However, and I love Herb Trimpe's art, but the comic was trying to find its footing a little bit, and it was still using some late 70s comic book tropes of like, hey, this is the issue where the pit gets invaded by a big robot, you know, and oh, this is the issue where and I'm not saying that these issues are bad in their own merits. I enjoy reading them. I have all the trades, you know, for all the run, but it sometimes doesn't quite feel like GI Joe. It feels like they're trying to figure out what GI Joe is in this first, I'd say in the first 20 issues, definitely, because by Shakedown, they definitely have figured out what G.I. Joe is.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's a matter of getting that full roster in there, and then suddenly the dam breaks and you start having, you've set up the chess pieces by issue 50, and by issue 51, the game is on from where I'm standing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They also in the defense of that, they didn't have a whole lot of Cobra to throw at GI Joe. There was the original 13, and GI Joe had all the equipment, and there was a Cobra soldier and a Cobra officer and a Cobra commander. For the most part, they had the Baroness, but that wasn't in the toys yet. So they had to kind of we don't know what we're going to have. Are we going to have jets? Are we going to have water tanks? Or are we going to have they didn't know. And there was a lot of the first 10 issues to me feel almost like a late 60s Shield comic book, where they've got that kind of future tech from the 60s.
The pit looks like that architecturally on the inside. It looks like they've repurposed a 60s Man from U.N.C.L.E. building, which is not bad.
It's still cool.
But it definitely has a borrowed aesthetic versus what they would establish as a GI Joe aesthetic a little later on.
Yeah. I think once I think it's issue 13, when Snake Eyes, Gung Ho, Stalker, and Breaker go down to South America, I feel like that's, and I like those first issues, don't get me wrong. I feel like that's when they're like, okay, now the story kind of is unfolding in front of us. Before that, it felt like, now they're in the snow. Now they're doing this. Now they're doing this. It was kind of hodgepodge.
Now they've got to get their tank back from the parade before Cobra captures it, and they have to get through Cobra's gauntlet, to get the tank back or whatever. And it's Steeler trying to get the Mobat through the city. And that's not, again, I want to make it clear to everybody listening right now. This was not a situation where two guys who hate the last 50 issues are against two guys who hate the first 50 issues. There's no hate here. I grew up reading all of these. So one of my favorite issues in the whole run is issue 31, where Destro goes and Firefly go after Snake Eyes in his cabin. Brilliant issue. Yep. It was one of three very first GI Joe back issues I bought as a child at the comic shop at downtown Nashville. Because I read a little asterisk in one of the other books I got off the newsstand, and it said, this event happened in GI Joe issue 31, and I'm like, I have to get that issue.
Yep.
So I want everybody to understand we're just debating the merits, but we all love the run, so the whole run. So
I'm going to respond to something both of you raised. So, Mike, you said that the chess pieces were more firmly established by the latter half of the 80s. I'd argue that quite literally the chess pieces were established by Destro in issue 21.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then Matt, the feel of those first 10 to 12 issues is kind of what the role that special missions occupied in the latter half of the 80s. So all of a sudden, these one-shot issues were being pumped into special missions, whereas in the early days of G.I. Joe, fine, they were trying to find their feet in terms of the makeup of the team and what the basis of the conflict is and who the major players are. So those first 10 to 12 issues do read like special missions. And that, I think, is key to the appeal. So by selecting issues 1 to 50, you get that all incorporated into one nice little capsule.
I do agree with that. That's a great way to look at it. I still like special missions better than those issues, but I definitely concede that they have that structure where it's here's a mission, and they're kind
Monster
of self-contained. Yeah, they're self-contained.
Mm-hmm. Tony, we haven't heard from you in a while. What have you to say about all these proceedings?
Tony.
I will kind of concede that I think there are a few problems in the first few issues. But one of the things I particularly like the most about those very, very early comics is the visual depiction actually of Cobra. The very first issue where I think it's a Cobra Commander and the Baroness, and they're kind of looking down into a parade ground with all the army. I really liked the way Cobra were drawn in those comics. Really had that sense of this evil organization, and they looked like a huge army. Like, I know they hadn't fleshed out yet what all the other toys in the line were going to be, but to me, I just saw this big army of darkly uniformed, faceless warriors, and I enjoyed that.
Well, they had
Might be
more
a
of
valid point to ask, like, do you like your blue shirts or do you like your Vipers? It kind of also characterizes this debate.
Blue shirts.
There's something very sinister about that, even more sinister than the mirror faces.
I mean, I'll always like the blue shirts over the bats and the Vipers. I mean, that's a given. One of the things that I found fascinating about the comic when I finally discovered it in childhood was that a lot of those elements stuck around, whereas they were already gone in the toy line. So in the comic book, you get Stalker and Scarlet all the way through. You get some of the standard Cobra troopers in the background all the way through. You have those elements. They're not being phased out of plastic like they were at Hasbro, which I also found very interesting because looking back on it as an adult, I asked Larry Hama in person, Dragon Con, how did you manage to pull that off, and not have all that stuff taken out by mandate? And his answer to me was, he was like, it was amazing. He goes, Hasbro just kind of sent me what they wanted in the book, kind of quarter to quarter. But beyond that, they didn't really police me. I could do whatever I wanted. So that kind of thing, yeah, the blue shirts are more prevalent in the first half because of just the artwork at the time and what was on the store shelves. But they're still, kind of around. Admittedly, a lot less, but they're still there, in places. So.
Yep, got to work in the toys though. Yeah, no, it's nice to see. Oh, we've got some super chats. Boom. Hello, Storm Shadow.
Grindhead Jim sends us a super chat. My vote goes to who can tell me the issue number that saw Scarlet and Stalker being held in a town fronting for a Cobra base, drugged up on psychotropics.
Was that issue? Oh,
issue 10.
Yes, I was. Yeah.
I do think it might have been Zap, unless Grindhead Jim has another issue in mind altogether. But yes, the drugged out issue was 10. That's the first introduction of Billy, though he wasn't so named in that issue. It was also the first time I think we saw a glimpse of Snake Eyes' ninja training. All the way as early as issue 10, because he's under the influence of the brainwave scanner, and he's trying to block out the location of the pit, which is what Dr. Venom is trying to get out of him. And so he throws up all these other memories, like the training in Japan. But yeah, interesting question, Grindhead.
Darren Cobb says Snake Eyes is weak. Darren Cobb says Oscar Mike. I think that's an endorsement. Chris Miwa of Chasing 80s Toys. Love seeing those Joes behind Tony climbing down the Ghostbusters headquarters. I also like that. And Storm Shadow version 2. Paul, brilliant mate. Who's Paul?
I love that Storm Shadow sounds like Aunt B from the Andy Griffith Show. Andy, whoopee.
Classic The Fly Attractor. Classic Marvel comic run was good to decent until it went ninja crazy towards the end. Made Power Rangers seem tame. Angry nephew, go. Randall Guzik, favorite G.I. Joe artist and cover, if you can answer.
I've always defaulted to Trimpy because he was the first, and then he took on the special missions run almost entirely. But I took the time, gents. I read all 101 issues, and my vote's pretty divided now. There's merits to every artist that worked on the book, to be honest. Maybe you guys have a more definitive answer.
During that first 100 issues, especially, there wasn't a bad artist. I think from 101 to 155, there was some really questionable stuff. But I'd say Herb Trimpe was probably my favorite. But I really liked, Rod Wiggum. I really liked his stuff. I looked at all their names before we came down too, and I was like, Marshall Rogers did a really good job as well. Sure. He didn't do too many. And but I really like the ones that he worked on.
I can't answer with any definitive statement who my favorite artist is, but I can tell you that my favorite cover of all time has to be 91. Yeah, wait, 91. There it is. Sorry,
Wow.
I didn't because that as a kid captivated me. I started in with issue 61. That was where I jumped in, and then I quickly got the yearbook and everything like that. But issue 91, when I see Snake Eyes and Scarlet and Jinx surrounded by Arashikage ninjas who are just, wanting revenge for something that they don't even understand, they've got all the wrong facts. That was, I snatched that off the spinner rack at Walden Books so fast. It was the coolest looking cover. And it was so cool, in fact, to me, that issues 92 and 93 were a disappointment because it was like, oh, thunderclap. I mean, it ended up being a good issue, but it was like, and again, this is pre-Ninja. This is pre the comic book going Ninja Force crazy after issue 100. But this was just kind of, like I said, those chess pieces were on the move and they were, doing things. And at the end of this issue, if I recall, there you go. If I was at the end of this issue, this is where Zartan kills the blind master, right? And then he goes off and pretends to be the blind master because he's realized he's about to ruin a little boy's life. It's such a cool issue with such a great cover. I will be quiet now. I know that
I did want to say my favorite cover is number 53, Pitfall, where it's Snake Eyes. It's the stoic bust of Snake Eyes basically, and he's holding the Uzi. And it's got the, I think the 25th anniversary of Marvel where all the characters are around him. That part I don't as much care about, but I love that image of just Snake Eyes kind of, like profiling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My runner-up cover would be G.I. Joe Yearbook number 2, which is that one.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so. Yep.
Excellent. Tony, got a favorite cover in mind, favorite artist?
Well, my all-time favorite comic cover of any comic is, I'm going to go back to Action Force Weekly again. Action Force Weekly issue 2 with Snake Eyes and Scarlet chasing a cobra eel through the London Underground or the London sewers. I'm not as up to speed on who the different artists are, but that is my all-time favorite comic cover. Always will be. Always has been. So.
It's a good pick. That's beautiful. I couldn't remember the artist's name offhand as well, but yeah, lovely stuff. Anyways, gentlemen, the debate. It's still raging. I guess what I'd like to make note of, and maybe this only applies to me, maybe I just have a poor memory, but when doing the reread, I started with 51 to 101 because I had a little bit of difficulty remembering the beats of it.
Yep.
Everyone knows about the Civil War, but as for the rest, sort of machinations with Cobra, Billy, Cobra Commander's apparent death, then the conflict between Fred Seven and Serpentor, the sort of underhandedness, and then what that gives way to, like that stuff seemed unfamiliar to me. Whereas when reading 1 to 50, I had a kind of a nostalgia linked to everything. I did a kind of a cover spread, and I was like, yeah, I know what happened in that one. I know what happened in that one. That one. Okay, cool. Yep. I think I'm pretty good to go. So is that because the first 50 are memorable, or am I just a weirdo?
It might be timing of when you, like you said, you remember the nostalgia of those issues in the first half. Whereas I freely admit, I started with a tattered issue of number 61, and kind of worked my way backwards a little bit as those comics referenced earlier issues, but also I kept going forward on the news rack, spinner rack, at the newsagent. So for me, I remember my first memories are Snake Eyes and Scarlet faking their own death to save Stalker, Quick Kick, and Snowjob from Barovia after Outback gets away from that Eastern Bloc. And then Storm Shadow teaming up with them to get him into that gulag and get them out. And then, the whole thing with Fred. And I mean, my very first issue of G.I. Joe I read, issue 61, is when Cobra Commander gets shot in the back and killed by Fred. Yeah. Which is like, wait, what? Wow, this really isn't a cartoon with lasers, is it?
What year would that have come out around issue 61?
87.
87?
87. Yeah.
87.
Okay.
So how was that for you, Michael? So you would have watched the cartoon first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was staggering. It was mind flipping.
Yep.
It all came together when Storm Shadow version 2 came out on the pegs, and I saw that tattoo on his arm, which I'd seen in the comics, and I was like, oh, the action figure line ties in to the comics, not the cartoon. That's why the action figure of Lady J has a cap like she does in the comic. You know, I was making all these connections, suddenly, and especially when I finally my comic reading got ahead of Hasbro. So I got established. I'm reading the comic, and then you get to the Snake Eyes trilogy, which is here. And in the Snake Eyes trilogy, he gets the third outfit, the third incarnation, which then came out, on the pegs. And I'm like, I know why Snake Eyes now looks like that as an action figure, because I've been reading the book. Because
he stole the uniform elements from like some S&M weirdos.
S&M torture guys.
When I first read that issue, I was like, I loved this Snake Eyes look until the moment I found out that like the mask came from a gimp.
Yeah,
literally.
they're executioners, Stephen. And
okay, we're still PG-13, right?
But I grant you, they're a little on the sadomasochistic side, BDSM. But
that's it.
Yes, but I will say this: it also proves that Snake Eyes can make lemonade from lemons. He can take it all that bad and reinvent it and make it awesome. So
Snake Eyes doesn't mind wearing someone else's sweaty trousers.
He does what he's got to do.
He is commando, after all. Terrible.
Well, he does.
I'm a dad now. I get to make these kind of jokes.
You absolutely can. But that I know I'm skipping over a few things in the latter half as well. Matt, keep me honest. There's I love the whole thing. Going back to my toys, finding out that the what I called Robo Cobra Commander was a Crimson Guardsman who was disgruntled and wanting to take over, and seeing him in the comic, colluding with Baroness and trying to stay under the radar, and Dr. Mindbender and all those guys being kind of suspicious of what was going on, and all of that I found very compelling. As a kid, I could understand the intrigue and I could follow it.
Well, I love that they were fleshing out all of these characters, even characters I hated. Like I hated Serpentor as a toy when it came out. I hated him in the cartoon. I was like, that's not my Cobra leader. Cobra Commander is. And, he, and as soon as Larry Hama could get rid of Serpentor, he did in a very quick fashion where it's like, hey, I'm here telling a story. Whack, dead, done. So I love that. Like he said, in like Battle Armor Cobra Commander, when that came out, I'm like, well, wait, why does he need that? He's already, Cobra Commander in his normal outfit and the helmet. So the fact that it was a different person, then it to 10-year-old me, I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. I can roll with this, There was a lot of things.
I think you stumbled upon a point that I wanted to make, and that's perhaps a weak link in the latter half.
Mm-hmm.
Of the run under discussion. And it's the fact that Serpentor never really lived up to his promise.
Yeah.
Rereading the issues, his creation, his appearance at the Battle of Springfield, and his ultimate sort of victory over the hearts and minds of the man in the trenches, the blue shirt. Like Serpentor had the Cobra army in his thrall, and one expected a civil war to break out between the real Cobra Commander and Serpentor. And then, I almost wanted Serpentor to come out on top. It was a bit of a sucker punch, the way he was dispatched. This was a threat that should have gone on to bring G.I. Joe to its knees. I think, just coming back to my initial point that Serpentor never lived up to his promise. If you were to read issues 1 to 50 and then kind of forgot what happened, the potential that he has remains unsullied. Whereas in the time that he had Cobra under his power, he didn't really do anything, did he? I mean, it was like Mindbender was kind of in the driving seat of Cobra because the focus became selling the Terradromes to nations and getting them under the sort of the paranoia Ray influence.
Yeah,
What do you say to that?
he had a lot of ambition, especially in those 20 issues leading up to the Cobra Civil War on the island. He had a lot of ambition, and he had a plan to, like you said, the Terradromes were not bases to conquer. They were basically like Trojan horses, with the secret signal that turned people aggressive and all that. And they did that to basically, you're going to need to buy more of these. So it was a business move. They basically turned Serpentor into a businessman and kind of
ironically when he should be a warlord.
Yeah, so it was kind of an odd thing, and he was like, "We're going to take this in a new direction." He was basically like when they bring a new manager into a job, and he's like, "Okay, forget all this stuff. We're going to get rid of all these old timers. Here's where we're going into the future." And the hierarchy at Cobra kind of shaking up after issue 50. Destro goes back home, finds Major Blood impersonating him in his castle, beats the snot out of him. And kind of goes from there and says, you know what, I'm done with these guys. I'm going to do my own thing, and I'm going to play both sides against each other. And I'm going to sell, services and weapons to both sides. And again, a businessman. And so Zartan, Mindbender, Zorana, they all kind of step into that, and the Baroness step into that leadership support role. And like you said, it was kind of a sucker punch for Zartan to take him out. But to me, Zartan was the best field commander of Cobra ever.
Wow.
He was the smartest military mind that they had other than Destro. And he kind of proved it by, it was like, you know what? All through the Cobra Island Civil War, he's literally telling Fred 7, do this, do that. We need to do this. And he's not listening. And so finally he's just like, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to take care of this with one arrow. Yeah.
Crazy. Somewhat OP. I mean, certainly him evading capture by basically like mystiquing the entire time he's in the pit. Like there were elements of superhero comic books way beyond the initial 10 issues. I mean, Larry, there were no rules that applied to certain characters, it seemed.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, Dr. Mindbender.
Oh.
Did somebody say Mindbender? We have some more super chats. Storm Shadow needed the bathroom. Chris, did you guys find the cartoon or the comics first? I found the comics after the cartoon. Loved that the comics were more grounded.
I found the cartoon first, and then I discovered the comic around, I guess, 1987 with G.I. Joe issue number 61. But no, that's not true. I was reading comics from the next door neighbor earlier than that because I read Shakedown and G.I. Joe Yearbook, but I never made the connection that they superseded the cartoon. I always thought they were just an alternative. But when I started actually reading as a devoted collector with 61, that's when I started to pick it up. Yeah.
But you had the toys from 82, right, Mike?
Yes, they sprinkled in from 82 to 85. Like I would get pieces here and there, like the hovercraft. And my first one was the Vamp with straight arm clutch. I had straight arm flash, straight arm grunt. I had the APC. And then slowly, as I realized Star Wars was never coming back, and all these other toy lines in the mid 80s, like Voltron and Silverhawks and stuff, weren't sticking around because there wasn't enough there. I was like, wow, G.I. Joe is like the love of my life that I've been neglecting because I've been out looking everywhere else when it's right here. And so I started really collecting, in 87. Yeah. Captain Power was my last letdown. I was like, no, I won't be let down again. I'm with you, Joe. I'm with you, Joe, till the end. So,
I screwed up. Take me back.
Yeah.
Silly TV toys. Rick Shattered Glass Jazz, one of my major G.I. Joe brand moments as a kid was reading issues 21 to 27 of the comic. Zartan, Snake Eyes, and Storm Shadow. Also loved Mike Zeck covers.
Oh, Mike Zeck covers
Another
were-
vote for the early half of the 80s.
Yeah. Mike Zeck did some amazing work.
Mindbender. Red Show Studio. Yo, I can't even see it. There's another one here. Randall Guzik. Thoughts on IDW's Hammer continuation with the, spoiler, Death of True Snake Eyes by Serpentor.
I don't read the modern ones.
I tried. I tried picking up the continuation going forward, and I was so weird because it was like within the first 3 pages there was like a splash page of Storm Shadow in his old uniform and Baroness, and they're like waiting for Cobra Commander to show up, and I'm going, I'm pretty sure that Baroness was out of the comic and Storm Shadow was a good guy by the end of this run. So how are they doing the hard reset on this? Kind of felt like a proto Force Awakens kind of thing going on. How'd Han
This
Solo
is a
become smuggler?
problem that there's a lot of recycling of old ideas, because I guess, why not go back to the well? You've earned, you've done the hard yards, Mr. Larry Harmer, and the conflict between G.I. Joe and Cobra is circular.
Right.
If they constantly are discovering each other's bases, attacking them, winning, losing, drawing, and then it starts again, which was already starting to happen in the classic comic run. Now we're 30, 40 years into the future. There have been multiple retreadings of the same ground, and boy oh boy, the brainwave scanner is still very much in effect, which leads me to a point I'd like to make.
Okay.
That these recycling of ideas were clearly happening within the latter part of the 80s. The brainwave scanner was becoming. We've got. Anyways, the brainwave scanner was becoming a tried and tired trope already. And while there was only one attack on the pit within the first 50 issues, in the second 50 issues, we've got no less than 3 attack attempts. So there was a sense that maybe we're doing the same thing. The conflict is kind of evergreen. No one really gets a leg up, which becomes problematic, I guess.
Well, there's only one successful attack on the pit, though. The other 2, one was a red herring, and then the other one was they just basically, what did they do?
They moved
the Python Patrol. Yeah, they moved the Quonset huts.
They just moved them across the desert, sure. Yeah. And the huts were attacked and destroyed, and nothing was found underneath. And then I think in issue 100, the attack was supposed to happen at the behest of Clutch and Rock and Roll tearing up the interior of the pit, and therefore giving away its location to the Pythonized forces on the surface, led by Zorana. But there are 2 great sins in that. The one is the use of the brainwave scanner, or overuse of the brainwave scanner. Don't cackle at me, Dr. Mindbender. And the other great sin is the fact that Clutch and Rock and Roll being Cobra plants was something that was built up over a number of issues and then didn't have any real payoff.
No,
it kind of fizzled out. So I'll take that point too.
I cannot debate that, sir. You are objectively correct.
D. Hatfield. G.I. Joe comics led me to a lifetime of comics collecting. When the original G.I. Joe cartoon aired, I thought it was ongoing. When Tom and Jerry aired the next Monday, I punched a hole in my wall. I can relate. Speaking of brainwave scanners, I have been checking out the brainwave scanner for the poll results on this debate. It's
what? They've already started polling?
Yes, I've been polling throughout the whole episode. But now is the last chance, gentlemen. Make sure you get all of your last minute points in, and then we will pull up the results and see which is best part of the comic books.
90 minutes.
By my collective intelligence, I will determine the results and present them to everyone.
And yes, to answer your question, we're going to run 90 minutes, but perhaps this is a opportunity for us to make kind of closing remarks. Then we'll have the voting close at about 1:15 the hour.
Okay.
And
Okay,
then tally
sure.
that. We'll kind of just go free form in the last 15 minutes. I've got a little bonus round prepped.
Okay.
Nice.
Right
Okay.
for the end. Yeah.
Well,
But
please,
Tony,
Tony, please, yes, Tony, go ahead.
So it was just brought up before in one of those super chats. They talked about issues 21 to 27. That is the greatest sub-series in all of GI Joe. The most engaging story I've ever read in comics to me is seeing Stalker, Snake Eyes, Tommy in Vietnam, how they came back from the war, how that all evolved. Obviously, I feel like I've got an ace up my sleeve here with issue 21. It's probably the most well-known G.I. Joe comic of all time. It always gets referred to. Although I'm going slightly off tangent here. I did hear in one of the promotional reels for the new Snake Eyes Origins movie, Henry Goulding refers to Snake Eyes as being known as the Silent Ninja, and I thought, aren't they all silent? He's well known for a comic that was known as the silent issue, with no dialogue,
as opposed to the loudmouth ninja,
the one with the boombox.
I mean, that one's my favorite. I love the loudmouth ninja. Hey guys.
I also particularly like the introduction of Destro. How I think he's in like 3 or 4 issues before you ever actually see his face.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the way that was done, and then the issue Destro attacks. I particularly enjoy as well.
Yeah, that run 21 to 27 had some really good stuff. The introduction of Zartan, I believe is 25 or 26. That's a good one where they're in the swamp. Yeah, can't refute that.
But you've got to. Come on, man.
I don't want to win.
I'll tell you this much. I'll refute it a little bit. You've put me into a place, Stephen, where it makes me feel a little awkward because I don't ever like, refuting anything Tony says. So this is going to be uncomfortable for me.
Well, I'm glad you guys are on opposite sides of the divide. I wonder if anyone else has twigged to the fact that we've got like a Northern Hemisphere versus Southern Hemisphere going on here. United States versus Australia.
I've wanted,
South Africa.
It's the G.I. Joe Civil War.
I've wanted to come see Tony, and I'm afraid now I won't have the invite. I'm not about to slam him, of course, but my thing is that the introduction of Zartan and the Dreadnoks and things like that. Yes, Zartan was, as you said earlier, Matt, throughout this series, he was like the sleeper enemy genius. But I was never the biggest fan of the Dreadnoks and Zartan. They never really clicked for me. They were just like these mercenary punks that somehow ended up in both the cartoon and the comic and even the toy line, getting this huge foothold in all of that. And I know that they were almost bears, which is funny because there was so much lip service paid to Ewoks and the Robo-Burbles and Thundercats that it seems like sometimes there's just this offshoot element. But to play my card, if issues 21 to 27 are the card for this, my personal card for issues 50 through 100 is really showing, like, yes, there's a flashback sequence to Vietnam, which we see their background in 21 to 27. But that is apart from the events of G.I. Joe. It is a flashback to, like, the comic book The Nam, not literally, but figuratively speaking. Whereas issues 50 to 100, you get to see how close Stalker and Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow's friendship is for what they're willing to do to help one another when the chips are down. He's literally willing to fake his own death and risk being, prosecuted, not just court-martialed, but prosecuted and thrown in prison or even executed for going AWOL, abandonment of his duty, to go rescue his friend and also risk an entire international incident by teaming up with a former terrorist who used to work, a ninja that used to work for the biggest terrorist organization in the world, while also going into a country that he's not authorized to go into. And his friendship was so strong that he got his girlfriend to agree to do it with him, making his friends so angry when they finally revealed to them after they got back that, oh yeah, even though the GI Joe brass told us nobody's allowed to go after these guys, as far as we're concerned, you're locked down to base. Go to the beach, literally. Go to the beach. Don't go get them, which is what they did. But they come back, and Flint is so angry that they didn't let him in on it because he would have wanted to help. He would have wanted to, help them out. He gets angry at Snake Eyes and Scarlet, and then Lady J has to punch him in the face for being for not seeing the clearer picture. It's like, don't you see they were trying to protect us too?
So the cartoon made Flint this unassailable hero, but I feel like Larry had it in for Flint. He was like this preppy college grad. Like he seems to be showing up at every turn a little bit.
Yeah,
in the comic book run, I find. That's great. And Mike, to add to that point, my favorite element to arise out of that whole period is the way Outback is treated by his buddies.
Yep.
There's this great gradient of like Roadblock kind of saying, "Hey, give the guy the benefit of the doubt," and then Leatherneck, and both of them probably spoke for larger groups of Joes, but Leatherneck being like, "You scumbag! How could you leave your buddies?" Yeah. And then the moment when Stalker and the boys arrive back at base and they're like, oh, I'm sure you guys didn't think ill of Outback. The only thing keeping us going in that gulag was knowing that he got out with the truth.
Right.
And that they cut to the rest of the Joes looking very sheepish.
Yes.
That's hairs on the back of my neck stuff.
Well, and the another aspect of that too is that they were on a black op. So he couldn't even explain himself fully, because that was an unofficial mission. So when
all he could do is give Leatherneck the point of that knife.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know what you're talking about, and then he won't let it go, and he's like, "I'll carve you in half, dude." Like, so that was like that bit of realism that Hama put into this series that, overall makes it so good. But I feel like he explores more of that stuff between 50 and 101 than he does in the first 1 through 50. That grittiness of like a Joe pulling a knife and putting it to the throat of another Joe. I don't think that would have happened. As good as 1 through 10 were, I don't think we would have seen that with the green shirts, with the original 13.
Yeah.
Also, I'd just like to say real quick, Tony, that I hope you understand that I do also love issues 21 through 27, and I will endorse them if you will forgive me. Thank you.
Michael, were you head of the debate team at school?
No, not at all. I was kept far away from.
Right back at the start of this stream, when Stephen was pitching the whole, you're on a desert island in a hammock, because like we've been having some emails going back and forward about this panel for some time, and then when you pitched that, I was like, Steve, you've just moved the goalposts, and now now Michael and Matt have got a lot further to kick. It was like, that was a nice setup, and I'm glad I'm on your side.
Well, they fumbled the ball when they didn't introduce the topic by giving me free reign to kind of situate us. And I'm going to up the ante a little bit now that we are in the kind of the closing arguments session. Not only would this be the more compelling read, 1 to 50, but also the essential read. If you were to strip out one of these periods, the one stands on its own, in spite of the beginning being a little bit of a slow burn. The fact that you get Snake Eyes' origin story within it, it sets up the conflict within Cobra. It sets up Destro as an honorable man. It sets up even this flippy-dippy sci-fi character in Serpentor, who, as I said before, has such great potential, probably never really met it. But within 1 to 50, you've got a far more complete and compelling story than what was to come later, which was, there were elements that are perhaps playing more towards Larry's like political whimsy. Like Joe's being hamstrung by the jugglers, which is a real world concern, but perhaps not such exciting comic book reading. Also, I don't know how keen people are reading about banana monopolies and banana republics in their GI Joe book, where they really just want to see toys going. I don't want to talk down to our audience, but I think like save the political intrigue for the news and get back to like
robots
seeing which could win in the air, like a Sky Striker or a fully kitted out Rattler.
Or giant robots in the pit.
I'll take it.
Look, I'm going to appeal.
It's a beautifully contained story.
It's literally contained in the pit.
There's so much fun in the fact that it is as we said, contained story. It's a confinement drama. It's one of those like bottle episodes of a TV show, which oftentimes are like the standout episodes. The fact that you've got this desperate struggle happening in the pit to try and keep this robot from assembling itself, from getting a signal out. Meanwhile, the counterpoint, it's played for laughs that there's like some kind of tea being held among the chaplain assistants, and like Hawk and Scarlet are trying to be like, oh, that was a gas explosion, or the guys are getting rowdy downstairs. I don't know. I think for all its faults as maybe being authentically GI Joe and being something else, it's a very, very fun book to go back to.
And I'll just say for the latter half to try and appeal to one last time to Tony's, if you can hear me, Tony, you've got in the latter half, you've got Snake Eyes from neutral to helping, Snake Eyes in all these jams. You've got him going into his V2 urban camo, which you and I both love more than the original. And I'm just gonna go nuclear here. You've literally got stories like not just the ones we're talking about with Outback, being mistrusted by GI Joe, but you've got Scarlet trying to help Snake Eyes, find his life again by trying to get him the best surgeon in the world, and then all of that goes bad because it's all a trick. And Storm Shadow in his V2 urban ninja camo, climbs Cobra's embassy building while it's on fire, trying to get to Snake Eyes, who just killed 3 gimps in a basement, stole all their clothes, and he's going up Die Hard style, and he's killing everybody to get to Scarlet, and doesn't know that she's been shot in the head by the Baroness, and he's gonna kill the Baroness, and I mean. And then, and then when she finds out that she's had it all wrong and it wasn't Snake Eyes that killed her brother, and Destro is the one that tells her that, because Destro is a man of honor, and, she realizes everything she's done and she tries to commit suicide, but he won't let her. And, then like an issue later, Snake Eyes says the one word that he's ever said in the whole book, at her hospital bedside, Scarlet, and let me just repeat one more time, Tony. V2 Storm Shadow. V2 Storm Shadow.
Here's a point for you, Mike. I think this warrants being added into the chat. Harmer wrote every book as if it was someone's first. Someone can read the second half just as well as the first. And I'm personally acquainted with this gentleman, and I'm pretty sure he would make the same argument for issues 101 through to 155.
Right.
So it's a very valid point. Yeah, there was a great entry point in every issue. Every issue had a hook.
I would like to add, too, that we've barely touched on the Cobra Civil War, but that arc, those 3 or 4 issues, that battle, I feel like is better than the Battle of Springfield in issue 50 and 49. A, because it lasts longer, but B, there's so much more moving pieces. Destro comes in out of the blue, under the cover of that cruise ship, hardly fires a shot, and gets exactly what he wants.
I can concede that.
Yeah, the
and
recon team.
A little map.
Yeah, they give you the map at the end, and they show you where everybody's at. It's almost like the beginning of Game of Thrones, where they show you the credits, and it's like, here's where all these kingdoms are. But the recon team that goes in, that has to take the airfield, just the way that was all set up, it was beautiful, because it all made sense to a 10-year-old reading that book going, oh, okay, so if these guys don't take the airfield, then the rest of the Joe team can't land. And when they do land, because they're on the way, they're going to get chewed up by artillery. It just, all of that stuff, covering the flanks, coming around the volcano, all of that. It was just really, really nice.
Does Storm Shadow
line.
get killed by the Baroness in the first half or the second half of the run?
He gets killed before the Battle of Springfield. He gets shot like
okay,
8
thank
times.
goodness, because I thought for a minute that our half had 2 characters getting killed and being resurrected, Cobra Commander and Storm Shadow. But since you guys have one in the first half, it's a wash. So you
even
can't throw that one.
Stevens.
There you go.
That was another thing that didn't really live up to its potential.
Yeah.
I mean, Storm Shadow being a reanimated corpse, essentially, now with the kind of added insight into sort of all those dead leaders, that's something that Larry kind of swept under the carpet pretty swiftly.
Yeah, it's like, never mind that.
Tony, what were you saying?
I've got my closing argument now. So since you remember my love of Storm Shadow version 2, and you just used that against me.
No, I'm using it to appeal to your good nature. It's like right now, I'm Clark Kent in the junkyard, and you're like Superman in muted colors, and I'm like, no, don't throw me into the crusher.
So what I will say to the audience who are going to vote in the poll, who's going to win this? If you're on the fence about whether the first 50 issues or the second 50 issues, if you're on the fence and you're undecided, just vote for the best accents on the stream.
Oh.
Diplomatic immunity.
I cannot argue that.
Should we do Australian accents?
I mean, we could.
I mean, we could totally do Australian accents if that would help us.
Oh, you best dreadnought, mate.
They're riddled with disease.
People. Couldn't have said it better myself, Tony. Thank you. I believe Mercer's joined the party. What up, birdie?
Felix Stratton, the Fly Attractor. Question for Tony / Analog Toys. Opinion on Action Force turning Baron Ironblood into Cobra Commander. Rather.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the fact that they did that. They could bring Cobra Commander. It was obviously done from a marketing perspective. They were going to stop making Palitoy were going to stop making anything new, and they were just bringing Hasbro product to the UK. So in the comic storyline, they had to switch it over because the following year, Baron Ironblood wasn't going to be in toy stores. Cobra Commander was. I think in the comic storyline, they maybe should have killed off Baron Ironblood and brought in someone else, but having him morph into Cobra Commander, no.
Chris Johnston. Sorry, wrong voice. Does the winner get chocolate donuts and grape soda?
Man, oh man. If I could FedEx that to the winner, I certainly would. But I kind of want to make the point that, like, everyone's a winner. We, the readers, are the winners. Because these are fantastic books. Wherever you jump into them, be it in the first half, second half, you can't miss, I don't think.
Agreed.
Bradshaw Studios. I'm just wondering if they ever put Cobra Commander on trial in the TV series, they would have to remove the helmet.
Oh, then it would explode.
Yeah, good luck to them.
Does anyone else think that that's a strange device? That essentially it's a failsafe that blows your commander's head off if they try and remove it? Like,
you better not just pull it off or else you'll blow my head off.
I can't live without my hat.
What are your thoughts on the multiple deaths from issue numbers 108 to 115? Doc, Quick Kick, Breaker made me cry. Battle Force 2000, not so much.
Yeah, nobody shed a tear for them. That was a brutal run. That's really, to me, that's the only readable run from 101 to 55, with the exception of number 155, because I really don't like the second or the last third of that series. But when those guys get killed in that pit, that was heart-wrenching, even as I think I was 13 at the time. And I remember reading that and just being like, oh. It was like Transformers the movie all over again.
Mm-hmm. We got 2 more super chats, and then I think if you haven't discovered that the link to the poll is in the description to this live stream, well, no, I'm telling you.
I didn't know. I'm going to go vote for myself.
Yeah, we didn't vote yet.
Go for it. Anyways, if you are watching this, scroll on down and hit the link, enter your results. You will have the next, I suppose, 5 minutes to comply. But continue, Mercer.
James Salzburg. For Michael to say Tony and Steve are right using Cobra Commander voice.
And then thankfully, I just saw his other super chat come up saying, I meant the Skeletor voice, thank goodness, because otherwise I'd go into a coughing fit right here.
Star Scream, I insist.
Tony and Steven are right.
I think we just won this.
Surprisingly close. Gee whiz.
Darren Cobb, Railroad. Iron blood to Cobra Commander is like having a mean Rottweiler getting neutered. I like it.
Yeah.
And just so it's on the screen, I meant Skeletor voice. Just a reminder to get your votes in. I believe Mindbender's coming back now.
And
yeah, man, that Baron Ironblood was absolutely ruthless, particularly with his own troops. Just throwing red shadows into the slaughter, into the grinder. It was they had a very hard edge in those early books. So yeah, I'm sure Tony you'd agree with that.
Just remember to get your votes in soon, and 50 to 100. I mean, quality books. I mean, just great books.
This is Michael's audition tape for Oliver, the musical.
Hey, you know what? I ain't got no shame at this point. I'm doing what I can to pull this out of the fire.
Just imagine if you guys were on a vacation and you were in a hammock and you only had 2 weeks to read these comics. Which would you choose? Come on.
Gents, I'm going to throw some images on the screen. Let's play a little game of which is the better outfit. Which look do you prefer? This is an easy one, right?
Oh,
there's a lot going on here. Which outfit compared to what?
Wait a minute. There it is. Hey. Okay. Suspense. Yeah. Easy one.
One's in a green body condom, and the other one's in pants and a jacket.
One's wearing his PJs.
Kidding,
I'd have to go with the bomber jacket.
I will say this. What makes Hawk's uniform not work is the green camo is just, it's too overstated.
Right.
So but also he wears a fur-lined bomber jacket everywhere, and I've seen him wear it in the desert. I've seen him wear it in the jungle, and that is just foolish, which makes me think he's got some sort of hang-up or impairment that he's not reporting.
Oh, he's trying to endorse an action figure, that's all.
He's not reporting that to Lifeline and Doc, and I think he needs to be screened. So I will give it to Hawk. I'll give it to Hawk on that one.
Yeah, I'd go with Colonel Hawk. Yeah.
Colonel Hawk. Wow, okay. Do we have a dissenting opinion? I mean, I'm a V2 kind of guy, but yeah, that's the one that I'm more familiar with. The MMS was something that completely skipped by me.
You started this by saying, this is an easy one. This isn't an easy one for me.
Oh, okay.
I'm quite torn. Yeah. I think I'm going to have to go Colonel Hawk.
What?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Matt, you have the swing vote. Oh no, not even. You can break us even.
I said Colonel Hawk. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Then Green takes it. Gee whiz. OG 13 for the win. Next one.
Oh, this isn't even fair.
Well, it serves to highlight the point, gents.
Yeah, I see a theme developing here.
Absolutely.
Nobody in their
predominant
right
looks.
mind. Nobody in their right mind's gonna pick Robo Cobra Commander, bro. Nobody.
Bro,
Everybody
but
wants the
bro,
dude with the mirrored face.
He's got super strength in that, bro. He can smash stuff.
Look at that.
All
Look
right,
at that
all
helmet.
right. Then moving right along. I mean, unless anyone wants to add something to that, it's a cut and dry victory for Mirrorface. How about Roadblock?
Oh, this isn't fair either.
Isn't it?
I'll tell you this. I prefer 86 Roadblock's outfit. I prefer the head sculpt on 84. So
It's tough.
it makes more sense.
Does it? A neon green vest with a big red patch on it? I see that and I say his code name should be Target.
It's not neon. It's like a lime green.
I'm going.
He's wearing a tank top.
Yeah, well, guys wore tank tops in the mid to early 80s military. I'm going with original Roadblock, even if his head is too big for his body. I'm going with original Roadblock.
And I'm split. So Tony, you're gonna have to decide this one.
I'm going to go 86 Roadblock.
What?
I like the machine gun.
You do?
like
The
the
GM,
I
what's
prefer.
the general purpose GPMG?
Yeah, it looks like a British GPMG. So
Yeah.
It's a touch oversized though, because they wanted to make it like at least size parity with the Mardus. So would you agree that it should be about a third of, or no, 2/3 that size?
no, I wouldn't say 2/3. So GPMG is a pretty big weapon.
Okay, right. Well, I'll take it from you, sir. Next up, gents. If it works. Oh, don't tell me my computer's hanging. It is! All right, I'll just have to do this by memory. Oh, come on.
You can do it. I believe in you, Steven.
Computer calculations, but do you believe in my hardware?
I'm sorry, Steve. I don't know why I'm calling you Steven tonight. Steve.
All right, you're just gonna have to take my word for it. It's by memory, it's gonna be green shirt rock and roll versus the guy who has basically 2 car engines as handheld weapons.
89 rock and roll. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
I go 89 rock and roll, and I'll tell you why. That was the closest thing to the Predator minigun that we had in GI Joe form at that point.
Okay.
And he had a lever action rifle, which was kind of cool.
Oh yeah.
If I don't go with the original rock and roll, he won't star in any of my GI Joe skits anymore because he'll be mad. But I do like the little cap, the military cap that the re-release one wears, the redesigned one with the khaki sort of vest top or whatever.
It's a solid look.
But
he does have a bullet band around that hat, though, which would get really heavy.
Yeah, I got to go with OG. I'm going with OG.
OG, bro.
OG, bro.
Split again. I'm a kid of the latter half of the 80s, so I'm gonna have to issue OG for V2. Tony, what do you say, brother?
I've got to go the OG.
Yeah, thought so.
Yeah.
I think my computer's working again.
What's up?
Which Destro do you prefer?
Oh man. Okay, so my next door neighbor had the original when we were growing up, but then I got the only Destro I ever had as a child was the second one. But I admit it's a lot out there. It's not a little. It's a lot out there.
Destro on parade.
Yeah, somebody else go first. I'm
going to pick 83 Destro, even though he is definitely more flamboyant with the big collar and the open shirt. I feel like it's trading one for the other with the cape on the second version and the gold helmet. A little ostentatious, so I'm going to stick with the original.
I love incorporated weapon systems on a figure. And while you can assume that version 2 has something to it, I think it's more ceremonial. Like, the sword is not a weapon. It is a showpiece. Like, I think what they did with the sculptor, the figure particularly, is they have him in a situation where he was at some ceremony, and then he's having to respond to an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why his boot cuff is pushed down, and he's hastily attached a holster on his left side. because the sword scabbard is occupying the right side. This is a very impromptu moment that we've caught Destro. He's like, oh crap, I need to respond to a situation developing on the grounds. Let me hop in my despoiler now. Whereas version 1, the wrist rockets, such a great detail.
I got to go with version 1 as well. I mean, all my common sense says version 1, and knowing that he was good enough to be a completely different character in Action Force. Whereas the other guy was just always Destro, Iron Grenadier Destro. I'm going to go with the OG.
OG for me.
All righty. Things get a little bit tougher. I think I know where 2 of the gents in this.
Yeah, I still want to get one of those V2 Storm Shadows and paint him to look like the golf course ninja from the beginning of Ninja 3.
You can actually pick up a 2000s version that's already kind of that color.
Nice.
Yeah.
Like so yeah, I loved V1 growing up. I had him as a kid, but when I saw V2, I was like, yes. Not always the better weapons combo, I'll admit, but the better looking figure all the way around. And I loved the claw. I love the claw.
At least V2 can hold his swords, whereas I'm really battling to get V1 to grip those very dainty swords.
Yes.
And let's not even get started on the bow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I love V1 for what he is, and he's a ninja, so I love him by default. But V2 is my jam. So
I'd say V2, even though I do love version 1. I hate his accessories. They're unusable. I just despise them. And I also like that V1 looks like Franco Nero from Enter the Ninja.
Oh yes,
that's true.
The eyes. Totally.
That's true.
Yeah, the first Italian ninja. I'm a Franco. But yeah, I go V2.
Tony, V1, right? No, I lie. You're a V2 guy, aren't you?
For one reason only. If you had put up, like you did with Destro, where you had just comic art up there, if you had chosen comic art, it would be version 1 for me. But if we're talking action figures here, version 1 Storm Shadow's head looks like a potato.
So looks like a sad potato.
A sad potato, yeah.
He looks like you just took something from him and he's like...
All right. Well, gents, I'm going to have to hurry us along, but the final round, you could have guessed it.
Oh, this is mean. Okay. You know what? Steve, you might have been one of a really good Cobra Embassy torturer with the way you're doing this. I mean, you might have been really fitting in with those guys.
The Payne brothers. Oh,
yeah. My emotions tell me to go with the original Commando because I really, really have a love for Snake Eyes with the wolf and the falchion sword. It'll never be version 3 for me, even though I don't mind that one. I don't like his weapons. I like the way he looks though. Gimp suit and all. But I really think I'm going to go with 2. I love 1, and I like how far away he is from Ninja with that. I love the Commando, everything. But there's something about having that falchion sword and having the timber with him. And so
85 Snake Eyes, best figure in the entire line.
End
of answer.
Okay. Nice. Strongly worded point.
Words.
Then I'm gonna what the hell be the underdog and say V3. It just had a certain mystique to me growing up, and those weapons, man. I'd gladly trade up a wolf for just the kind of arsenal that V3 comes with. Yep, all the bases are covered.
That
Tony?
gun.
Well, so since the one on the left, his name is Stalker, and he came with the SAS Panther, so he doesn't actually even count.
Ooh.
And I didn't like the one on the right in Pulp Fiction, so I've got to go with version 2.
Okay, well, V2 sweeps the boards, but it was to be expected. I'll take my dissenting opinion elsewhere. But
I love V3.
Paul,
I love V3. Love it. I'm with you. I love it.
Thank you. Paul, do we have a result, my friend? We got to wrap this up. These men have, other places to be, I'm sure, or bed.
Everybody's doing a brand new dance now.
Did you say everybody's doing a brand?
I know you get to like it if you give it a chance now. You're supposed to sing along.
I'm loving this. I'm loving this on a level that I don't think anybody else is picking up on, but I'm loving it.
Oh no.
But I also like Kylie Minogue. So the poll results are in. And it's looking well. Issues 51 to 101 got 12 votes. Very nice, gentlemen. Very good. Issues 1 to issues 50 got 51 votes.
Not surprised.
Well, I think at the end of a good debate, one should shake hands with the opposition. So I'm giving a virtual handshake, gentlemen. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Tony, for being the best teammate I could have ever hoped for.
I was cheating.
Aussie!
Oi, oi, oi.
And thank you, Dr. Mindbender, for your cameos. Mercer, Storm Shadow, you guys are the
It's
best.
not pleasure. Good to be here on screen again. I must torture Lady J on next episode. Well, anyway, thank you. Goodbye now.
Paul, get on camera, brother. What a legend.
Wow, there he is.
Paul woke up at 3 a.m. Central African time to assist. Thank you very much, my friend.
Oh, it's a pleasure, dude. Didn't want you to do this one by yourself, man. So
what a
Yeah, this has been fun, guys. Really appreciate everything, and
yeah, this has been a really, really fun stream to be on, and all that's due to you, Steve and Paul. I mean, GI Joburg's always a lot of fun just to listen to and be an audience member from, but you guys have made my first guest appearance on GI Joburg one for the books, so thank you.
And mine as well.
One for the comic books. Yeah, Zing.
And
all right, gents, I think we'll wrap it up. Yeah, go ahead.
I really enjoyed spending all that time with Dr. Mindbender. I never thought I would say that in my life. But
well, I'll have you know now that Paul kept that one pretty close to the chest. He didn't even tell me. But on the way out, thank you, RetroBlasting. Thank you, Analog Toys, for Iconicon. I'm having the time of my life. This has kind of been a pretty big deal for GI Joburg, which is a passion project that Paul and I birthed together dramatically back in 2011, and it's come a long way, and we're just loving doing what we do, like talking about toys and having this kind of feedback and back and forth with the fans. Thanks to everyone who joined the chats, thanks to everyone who gave super chats, everyone who voted, everyone who promoted these posts. Yeah, huge thanks.
And I'd like to just say one thing to everybody listening right now who may be coming from Analog or RetroBlasting. If you guys love 80s retro stuff and you love G.I. Joe, you would be remiss to walk away from this or click away from this after it's done and not hit subscribe on G.I. Joburg, because I have been following them for years. When they had their podcast, I've been listening to that consistently for years. Every time they bring up Scoop now, I just get a little bit of a thrill. Even though I don't hate Scoop, but I just never really had him as a kid. It's just fun to be in on the joke. It's fun to be in on their friendship and everything. And this YouTube channel is a firm extension of that philosophy with them. So they make great content, just like their Tomahawk video that they just dropped right before the stream. It was putting smiles on Melinda and April's faces upstairs, and they're not even that into GI Joe. They just love watching your content. So guys, hit subscribe on GI Joe. Yeah,
thanks, Mike. That's very humbling words, man. Thank you. That is a fantastic endorsement and very heartfelt. Thank you for everything that you guys do. And before we start running too long,
something to what Michael was saying.
Please.
The simple fact that you guys have actually sailed a flag on water, you will go down in the history books of GI Joe fandom forever. If you've etched your name in stone.
That's true.
Well, we had to do something to up our game. Like, everyone started doing the skateboard modification to their flags. So it's like, well, put it in the ocean, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, go big or go
Speaking
home.
of which, I need to get back to my flag. It's many, many time zones away. Anyways, catch all the rest of the Iconicon contributors, guys. If you are looking for a way to find and locate them, I mean, it should be obvious by now, but RetroBlasting has very kindly put together an entire playlist so that you do not miss anything. So check out their channel, go to playlists, and check out the Iconicon playlist. Everything that has been is already there for your watching if you want to catch them on the catch-up. And everything that is forthcoming and will be live and you can join in the party will be listed for your convenience. So easy, wonderful. There are like 50 different new items of content produced this weekend alone. It's a good time. It's a good time.
Oh, yes. It's going to be a
Without
busy
further
weekend.
ado, Yo Joburg, everybody.
Yeah. Yo, Joburg.
Yo, Joburg.
Loud ninja!